So you are going to look for fresh fund to repay back such loan, because the monies were not put into productive venture to generate wealth in order to pay back such loan. So the idea of borrowing should be that, it is really, really necessary, and it should be committed to productive purposes, that you are going to expand your business. Or, for example, the federal government want to look at, developing, power plants, power project that will ensure uninterrupted power in the entire length and breadth of this country. Let's even say a section of the country, maybe one geopolitical zone, that they believe once that fund is committed to such project and such project achieved, the economic returns, the revenue that may come from such a project, in terms of revenue be generated by power generation and supply, the transmission and supply, that they are able to make even more than what they borrow in terms of profitability and pay back such loan. No one will condemn such borrowing. A company can borrow and say, we want to expand our businesses. We've seen that our goods are really in high demand, and we need some infrastructure to reach this large market that we are seeing. Maybe the business is located in Warri. They want to now reach places like Ughelli. They want to reach Asaba. They want to ensure that they meet all of these demands that are spread across the entire length and breadth of Delta State. And that will mean huge revenue for them, and that will mean more profitability for them, in terms of economics of scale. So they want to borrow money, commit it into productive venture, improve their productive activities, bring about an increased output. Such increased output will multiply the revenue, and in turn multiply the profit, and such that when they are successful with that business venture, they come back, they pay the loan seamlessly, and they have more than enough extra income with their capital intact. You see that the business would have now expanded to Ughelli, expand to Asaba and Agbo, where it was not present before, courtesy of that borrowing. That's a developmental borrowing. That's borrowing in progress. That's borrowing for productivity. That's borrowing that will yield returns. But if we are borrowing to consume, and there is no clear-cut dimension on how we are going to recoup these funds to pay back, it's going to be double jeopardy. That's why I say double debt.
Double debt.
And because that money that you borrow, you put it into a venture that will not bring any return. You are already indebted. Now the money you are going to get to pay back that loan, you are going to get it from somewhere. Let's assume it's the revenue you have generated for infrastructure project. Once you remove that money to pay the debt, it means you are borrowing from infrastructure funds of financing. That means the financing for infrastructure would be, deficit in that particular era, in that particular fiscal year. And that would affect your developmental plan at the end of the day. So for me, the saying is being abused many a times when we just say, oh, borrowing is not a sin. There is no harm in borrowing. We agree there is no harm in borrowing. But underneath this borrowing, the details in there is what will determine whether you are actually borrowing to keep us in more difficult position, or you are borrowing to improve the standard of our living. And if you are borrowing to put our lives in more difficult situation, then that borrowing is a sin.
It's a sin.
Other than
it doesn't have to be in the Bible. It's a sin.
Yes. So other than just saying, no, borrowing is not a sin. Borrowing is not a sin. Yes. But that particular borrowing, if it doesn't affect the life of the common man positively, that it does not improve the life of the standard of living of the ordinary man on the street, it's a sin. Because you are going to give us more hardship. So how can you plunge people into poverty and penury and you say that is not a sin? You have sinned against humanity. You have sinned against the citizen of your own country.
That's right.
Because your duty as a government is to come and, alleviate their suffering, provide welfare that will better their lot. That is your primary responsibility. Secure their property, provide welfare for them, ensure that they are comfortable, you improve their standard of living, and you are coming in, you are borrowing, and you are making life difficult for them, and you say you have not sinned. So it's not only when you sin against God. Even the Bible recognizes that sometimes you sin against man and you sin against God at the same time.
That's right.
So in the case of this one, if you are sinning against man in that magnitude that Nigerians are now so indebted and in poverty, you have sinned against the people of Nigeria, and of course you have sinned against God, because these people will be praying to God, and they will be, God knows that their suffering is as a result of your poor governance.
Okay, so let me quickly ask before we call it a wrap on today's headlines from the dailies. How are these loans being paid? Like, for example, Nigeria borrows from World Bank or from US. How do they normally pay these loans?
These borrowings, they comes with terms and condition. That is the terms and condition encapsulated in such borrowing that determine how you pay back. So there's no uniform, jacket that is used to wear all of the payment pattern. So depending on what is there, some will ask you to utilize this fund, give you a break of say 5 years to enjoy these funds, moratorium, before you start to pay. Some will ask you, when start paying, pay the capital and the interest, or some part of the interest. So you are paying some part of the capital, you are paying some part of the interest. Gradually you nil it off. Maybe a 5 years payment term or a 10 years payment plan. So you spread it. If you borrow 1 billion, you are going to spread it by 10. So what you first do is to say, okay, maybe I borrow 1 billion, and the interest rate on that 1 billion is 100 million naira. So 1.1 billion naira. So that 1.1 billion naira, you are going to divide it by 10. So you pay that gradually. In 10 years, you nil it off. The other borrowing too, don't forget that some time ago we borrowed money for crude to pay back with crude oil. I think we did that with the African Development Bank. So that kind of borrowing now comes with a term that you are not going to pay us back in cash. Whatever the value of the crude oil, in the market, at the international market, it's no fault of anybody. It's immaterial to us. We just want that you are going to pay us back the value of this loan in crude. So when you pay us back in crude, we know what we want to use it for. We can go and resell and make profit from it. That can also be a way of making so much of interest for such entity who decide to go in that line. So there are a lot of different ways to it, not just one particular way. But these people who are borrowing you money, who are known or recognized as your creditor, they are the one that will determine these terms. They are the one to write out these terms, give it to you to go through. If you are satisfied by it, you pen down your signature, and they go ahead and disburse funds, which of course you must abide by.
All right, thank you so much. So let's quickly take a look at this. Thugs hired by parents assault vice principal for preventing cheating in Ondo, and that's on the WAEC, West African examination, going on right now. Has it gotten to that point where parents would want their children to engage in such activities?
First of all, let's condemn in totality.
Yeah.
Any parent who involved in such activity to hire thug. In fact, to even nurse the idea of going to visit the school environment where the awards are taking WAEC, it is very shameful. It is very shameful. And such parents should not be proud to call themselves parents, because they are not raising citizens that we will be proud of tomorrow in the next generation. They are raising citizens who will give us more problem. They are raising citizens who want to take up the baton from the hands of these ones that are living. They want to continue from where the corrupt folks that have been ruling us, they want to continue from there, where they stop. That's where they want to continue from. And those parents that are doing such, they are people who have studied, the present government of the country for a long time. They are people who have studied INEC for a long time. That is either you take it by force at the polling unit or you go to court. Because in Nigeria today, if you can't get it at the polling unit at the point where it is very hot, you go to court. I was watching a very comic clip on social media. This funny guy, Brain Jotta, and he did one particular clip. He was asking them to define democracy. They said democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And eventually, he told them that answer is wrong. That because they were using Abraham Lincoln's definition to define democracy in Nigeria, that is not Nigeria. That we have to define democracy in the kind of space we find ourselves, which is the Nigerian context. And he told them that, unfortunately, democracy in this climate is government by some people, selected by some few people, and for themselves. They left that. In fact, they went further to even look at the way elections are being conducted in Nigeria, and he asked them to elect their class prefect, and they all stood up. He asked those of them who were interested to raise up their hand. They did. 2 of them. He now asked them to pay 2,000 naira to his bank account immediately to get the form. They paid. After payment, he asked everybody to vote. The majority of them vote for the one of the candidates, a lady, and the others voted for the other guy. I think just one person voted for that particular guy. And at the end of the day, they were expecting the teacher or the copper who was in class, acted by Brain Jotter, to announce the winner. In a twist of fate, he said, no, this man that got 1 vote is the winner. They asked why. He asked the guy, are you rich? The guy said he's rich. Are you sure you're ready to pay anything to get this position? The guy said it's okay. Send me 10,000 into my account. The guy sent 10,000 into his account. He declared him the winner. And they were not saying, no, that is not it. Government of the people. But he said, no, that is your own definition. Like I told you before, this is Nigeria. If you don't agree with this, then go to court. So that is the reality in Nigeria. So sad. But that is where we have found ourselves. That is why parents can wake up in the morning, dress up their words and say, let's go to the school to fight.